wondering, I was curious if there was like a higher authority in forecasting and calling these hurricanes, and like, do you have to take your cue from NOAA or some or the National Hurricane Center or someplace like that, or can you go rogue, so to speak, and just kind of make your own predictions or rely on your own data?
Well, you know, I'm not going to speak for other weather guys, because there are guys in the TV weather business that kind of shoot from the hip. Now, mind you, I'm in television, but I did get my degree in meteorology, and I kind of brag on that, because if you go around the country and you go take a poll of your local weather guys, probably more than 2/3 of them don't have a Bachelor of Science degree minimum in meteorology. But for consistency's sake, and for the sake of the safety of the citizens, I take the National Hurricane Center information and the national, which is also disseminated to the local National Weather Service that issues warnings and forecasts for this area, and I go pretty much in line with what they said. Where I make my pay dirt is being able to observe the trends and say, hey, the Hurricane Center looks like this, but I think it's intensifying. We'll see what the next Hurricane Center bulletin says. And one of the things that the Hurricane Center really makes a big thing about, and I agree, is that, you know, we track these storms on the tracking charts as points, but hurricanes are not points. They cover 500 to 1,000 miles. Their damage swath is huge. So although we tell you if you want to track the storm and its movement, you track the point, but right now the most important thing is to know where the wind field is, where the storm surge is going to be, and we see how that manifests differently with each and every storm. From Katrina, which was a Category 5 storm offshore, but it came in as a 3, barely as a 3, but it still had about a 4.5, Category 4.5 storm surge. And the same with Hurricane Rita. That was a 2.5 to 3 when it came in, but it had a storm surge of a 4, or even what I thought might happen during a 5. The storm surge was immense across the coastal areas.
Now, I know during these storms, you guys kind of have to move into the TV station, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much, you know, you get smarter with time. Hurricane Andrew, I think I got about 2 or 3 hours of sleep over a 4-day period, and I went 44 hours straight broadcasting, and then I went home and I couldn't sleep. I was out of it, and now I'm smart. I take my power naps when I can take my power naps, and the thing is, most people do live at the station, but you try to take a 3 or 4 hour nap on a 24-hour schedule. When we're broadcasting 24/7, people going over the phone, I need this script, I need that, I need this video, so I try to go home and I take advantage of being in the media. The police let me drive on the streets even though there's a curfew, and I'll go home and get my 3 or 4 hour power nap. Yes, it is, that's one of the benefits, but you're pretty much living there, and with each and every storm, my work days leading up to the storm, say storm comes in on a Friday, Monday we're hitting it and it's a 10-12 hour day, and then you have the storm. And personally for me, it's the day after the storm that's the hardest day, because you have all this adrenaline, you're broadcasting, you're going non-stop, and then the hurricane goes inland, the news department goes home, the web people go home, stuff needs to be updated on our program and what we're showing on air, and then we have tornadoes. So we're still working overtime, and there's nothing more frustrating than trying to broadcast to an audience that is 96% dark, no power, and hopefully they're catching you on a webcast somewhere in Memphis or Dallas, and they're phoning their friends in Mamou that there's a tornado warning in Mamou. And that was one of the frustrating things I had with Hurricane Gustav, is that we had a pretty bad hurricane come through, ripping through the area, and 24 hours later, an EF3 tornado is ripping through Evangeline Parish. And it's kind of, you know, it's not your day when you've had a hurricane in the morning and in the evening you get a tornado hit your house.
Well, and I know, Dave, that in 2005, you guys were broadcasting from the radio station during the storms and things like that, and that was something that you guys didn't have a whole lot of experience with, live broadcasts at that level, right?
Right. Is this one hot? Give me a little heat? Okay. Yeah, we're primarily a music station, and during this particular disaster, we switched to being basically a news station, having the state police and anyone with social service information regarding shelters and what to do coming into the radio station, and we just flat out preempted all programming and started interviewing those folks. And then NPR, National Public Radio, sent down from WNYC in New York, Beth Fertig, who is one of the reporters that is frequently heard on NPR. She took a little hiatus to write a book recently, but she stayed here for a month or two doing actualities and going out, and then Rita hit, and so she stayed at my house, and I took her everywhere, to New Orleans, down to below Highway 14, and it was very interesting to watch her work, because she would simply go up to people and just ask them, "What are you doing?" And they knew what they were doing, and so that was a question that they were very prepared to answer. They were flying offshore to pick up some people off of rooftops, or those that were flooded down around Delpham, Erath, and Henry, and those areas. So yeah, it was a bit of a revelation to think that as a music station, which we had perceived ourselves as, that we could immediately switch to just staying on the air, bringing people in, state troopers, anybody who had information about shelters, Red Cross, the influx of people, primarily after the hurricane.
But it was still helpful, though, because a lot of people didn't have power, but they could catch a radio signal still.
Yeah, we stayed on the air. We have an emergency generator at our main transmitter site north of Crowley, and then also we have a gas-fired generator at the studio. So we were on the air, the whole time, and able to get some information out. And it was actually a departure from what we normally do, but was sort of fun in the sense that people were just coming in, I mean, with great information. And then some nationally produced programs like Nick Spitzer's program out of New Orleans, American Roots, they had to come to Lafayette and began broadcasting their program with us. And so their focus was on Katrina and what was happening with the musicians, and because they know them intimately, they were able to give us a lot of information along those lines too. So it gave us some insight into how we can incorporate news into our programming, which we hadn't really done previously.
Yeah, well, and I know I talked to several of the staff, and it was mind-blowing and exhausting, but also very fulfilling, because you knew that you were getting the information out and helping. It
is. I mean, I think anytime that you're distributing information that is of that kind of value during such a incredible, phenomenal crisis, it is satisfying. And kind of the neat thing about radio is that people don't see you, so you can be sitting there going, what's on, man, who's coming in next? And but it was really a good experience for all of us.
And I know, Rob, that you had experiences as well with the national media during the 05 hurricanes as well as other storms. And I'm curious, do you have any anything stand out in your mind?
Yeah, well, it's anytime there's a storm, whether you're doing radio or television, all of a sudden you're a conduit of information. And when you get to an 11th hour situation or post-storm, you may be the only conduit of information. And yeah, you find yourself, my touch with it, fame was, I guess first was Hurricane Andrew, and you have Dan Rather broadcasting out in front of KLFY studios, and then the next thing you know, the phones are ringing, and now after the storm, you got BBC Australia, London calling, all sorts of folks that want information, and you find yourself with a cell phone in one ear, a phone in the other ear, and then stand by your own ear, just drop everything down and go broadcast what needs to be done. But it becomes very interesting, at least from a media standpoint, because all of a sudden you feel like you're the chub, you're the bait, and you got piranhas all around. Everybody wants their bit of information, and it's coming from every different direction. And it's interesting on how people react to trying to get to you. And unfortunately, there's 24 hours in a day, there's 60 minutes in an hour, and you can't give anything more, and your availability is very disconcerting. You want to be able to help everybody get the information they need from distance or even locally, but it's also a big frustration. And I think I got people over at KATC trained very well. They kind of insulate me to a certain degree. I mean, I need to talk to the emergency preparedness managers. I need to talk to the 9/11 folks, the sheriff's department, the police department, the coastal wildlife and fisheries, and you just make a short list out of those guys, and you're still talking about hundreds of people that need information. So I try to insulate myself actually from a lot of that stuff, because I try to concentrate on the weather information, what's going on right now, and I'm charged with protecting life and property. So I want to help everybody that I can that's in that mode, but during Hurricane Andrew, a phone call comes back to me, and this is a poor woman down in Forked Island, or no, it was maybe closer to New Iberia, but her trailer's rocking, it's about to tilt over, what should she do? Oh. And you're talking to me, the weather guy? Well, get out, well, where do I go? And those are the stories that make it very rough. And I can remember with Hurricane Rita specifically, we had a woman that had 3 kids. She was a single mom living down, and it was in the Forked Island area, and she wound up, the water was into her trailer. She couldn't get out. She didn't know what she had to do, and she had to put her kids, swim out, put her kids on top of the trailer, and she wound up being helicopter rescued. But I remember getting that call, and it's like, how the heck is that woman going to make it? You know, and the water's 6 to 8 feet already on our property, and there's current and there's wind, and it's not going to be over for another 12 hours, but they managed to survive through that storm, through that night. So you get stories like that, and that's what really raises the hairs on the back of your neck, because it all of a sudden makes it it's a humanizing effect, because I'm there, I'm just buried in cloud tops and reflectivities on radar and everything else, and then all the stuff that you're doing, maybe I forgot to say, if you live in Forked Island, you better get the hell out of there, because, you know, I'm not here to make decisions for everybody, but I'm going to tell you there's going to be 10 to 15 feet of water up to Highway 14, which is what we said, but somebody in Forked Island may not understand that explicitly, so that's kind of the learning features that you get when you're doing the hurricanes, each and every one.
Well, on a personal note, I mean, like, what storm sticks out most from not so much a professional point of view, but from a personal perspective? I mean,
you know, each one is, I try to forget them all. You know, it's satisfying to go out and for me to be able to forecast, outperform the National Hurricane Center, say what's going to happen, and I've been fortunate enough that I came into the TV business with some weather background, so I feel fairly confident in the information that I have, is just being able to forecast, hey, Rita is going to be worse than Hurricane Andrew was to our area, storm surge-wise, wind-wise, you know, promise and get delivered on it. Not that I'm one that, you know, lives off of that, but it's satisfying after I've worked that whole entire week. I've done everything I could. I am so dog tired that I can't even drive straight. I get home and I go to bed and I feel like I've done the best I could possibly do as me as a person.
I mean, but then you